Alright gang, many of you have sent me messages, added comments here asking me when I'm going to do my year-end recaps of fragrances launched in 2024. You know, it's been a very busy year. I'm really behind, but a lot of great stuff happened. Of course, with the launch of Juicebox 54, that kept me busy traveling and so on. But I'm just now doing these year-end lists. This is the first one of maybe 2 or 3 that I'll do. This is a men's designer targeted list. So these are 2024 men's designer fragrance launches. And there's several that did not make the list that are going to be featured in the bonus section. And you're going to want to tune in to find out what didn't make the list. Just to let you know, I don't own everything, but this is what I've bought. And I'm sharing it in a list of my favorite men's designer fragrances. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Sebastian. We're talking about men's designer fragrances of 2024. What were your favorite men's designer fragrances? Do let me know. Add a comment below. Just a couple of things. I did say there were several fragrances that were left off. I did not like them or to end up here. But also a couple of technicalities. I've got two brands here that are not necessarily considered designers, but they've been selling their fragrances for so long along with the designers, so I left them in a designer list. I wouldn't really call them niche, but they're sort of niche because they don't really sell clothing or cars or jewelry. But again, as I said, they've been selling their fragrances for decades, years and years and years. You know, some over 100 years. So it's a given that I'm going to feature them here in this list. But let's start off the list, starting with Versace's EROS NAJIM. So EROS NAJIM, I felt like adding here because I did review it and I liked it, but I don't love it. So it's starting off the list. It's the bottom of the list. It's the EROS DNA and basically made it into more of a Middle Eastern style. It's spicy, it's citrusy and caramelly, but it has that kind of a very Western oud note in here. So it makes it a bit more, you know, unique compared to the original, but not so unique that it's going to make it completely out there. It's wearable. It's not my favorite. I appreciate energy a lot more than this, but we're starting off with EROS NAJIM. If you like a Middle Eastern twist, more of a Western Middle Eastern twist of your favorite EROS fragrances, check that one out. But moving on to the house of TUMI, this is DUSK. So DUSK came out this year, 2024, and I'm hoping that they're going to do something different because I feel like a lot of their latest fragrances seem very mass market and it doesn't live up to Continuum. I appreciate it just a little bit more than Versace's EROS NAJIM, but this is a very mass market release with violet leaves. There's musk here, black pepper, citruses, marine notes, woods, and amber. It's not anything groundbreaking, but it's easy to wear. It's kind of a blue fragrance. You might enjoy it. Just a grab and go, a dumb reach kind of fragrance. TUMI DUSK. Definitely check that out if you're into that kind of style. That is an extrait de parfum, so it is very long lasting for what it is, but I just find it to be a bit boring. This next one's from the house of Narciso Rodriguez. This is for him, Vetiver MUSC. You know, this was actually really great, but I feel like since it is an eau de toilette, it's just very weak wearing. So this is for the person that wants something musky, but also woody, earthy, grassy, and also spicy as well. You've got that here, and you would pick something like this. I prefer the Parfum edition of the previous series of fragrances. That one's great. It's got that kind of Vetiver Terre de Hermès reminder with something more like a Dior Parfum Dior Intense DNA. Here we're starting something new, I think, Vetiver MUSC. It's just a spicy, woody, fresh, musky fragrance. So this is for him, Vetiver MUSC from the house of Narciso Rodriguez. And then we're going to the house of PACO Rabanne, or now called Rabanne. It's Million Gold, this one right here. So I've worn quite a bit of this one. I'm enjoying it, and I've been meaning to do a video review of this. Let me know if you want a review of this one. I have a love-hate relationship with it, just like I have it with Santal 33. This does remind me of Santal 33, but there's a kind of a golden amber vanillic sweet thing happening contrasted with that kind of a Santal 33 DNA that's kind of addicting. Sometimes I really like it and I wear a lot of it, as you can see. Sometimes it turns me off because I don't really care for Santal 33 that much. But it's an interesting fragrance. It's definitely wearable. If you're into that Santal 33 DNA, but you want some sweetness, you might dig this one. If you don't like that whole pickle juice thing with Santal 33, you might not like this one. I like it, as I said. It's ranked here at 18. I've worn quite a bit of it. I wish it was a bit more potent for PACO Rabanne fragrances. It's not, but it's definitely wearable. So that's Million Gold from the house of PACO Rabanne. I also did not mention earlier that we do have 2 unisex offerings here, but I'm putting them here because I feel like they're kind of very, not necessarily masculine leaning, but I feel like men do enjoy these fragrances. Most importantly, this one from the house of Calvin Klein. It's CK1 Essence. It's actually a beefed up version of the original CK1 that came out 30 years ago. This is the 30-year anniversary, so they've given us something really intense. It's a Parfum Intense concentration. So once you have this one, you won't need the eau de toilette unless you like that kind of very fresh, light wear. This one's super robust. It has the similar notes: green tea, bergamot, blood orange, sandalwood, and musk. I enjoyed it. It totally takes me back to 30 years ago when the fragrance first came out, but it is a bit screechy and metallic. Just be warned. I find the original to be a lot more naturalistic smelling, but actually it's very, very light compared to this one. So this is CK1 Essence from the house of Calvin Klein. The next fragrance, I wanted this fragrance to be way at the top, but sadly it's not. This is Mugler's Amen Phantasm at number 16. Everything about this fragrance I love. I love the smell, but it is so light and weak on me. Even after months, people have said, oh, it's so beast mode on me, you should give it some time. I've given it time. I reviewed this one last summer, and still, after months, it still wears very light. So if you like the whole, Mugler DNA with the patchouli, chocolate, and things like that, but you want it to be on the light side, try this one. But some of you might think this is super potent. Again, on me, it's very light. It could be something that you like to wear that lingers on but doesn't wear beefy, because it does have that patchouli note and that has that lingering power, but it just wears very light. It smells fantastic though. I love that they did this. It's much better than the last. What was the last fragrance that they launched from the Amen series in the blue bottle? Didn't care for that at all, but this one smells super fantastic, and I'm hoping that they give us a Parfum edition and beef this thing up in the next one. So it's Amen Phantasm from the house of Mugler. And then this next one's from the house of VERSACE. It's Eros Energy. I just had to pick this up for this video, and I quite like it, but sadly it didn't make it to the top. It's a great smelling, very lemony, citrusy, juicy, not necessarily tart, but, sweet tart kind of a take on Eros. I hate Eros as a fragrance, but, I bought Eros NAJIM, and also here is Eros Energy. Let me know which one of these you like. Do you like one of them? Eros Energy is nice and fresh. I think it's a great summertime fragrance, and even though I'm picking up here in the cold of winter, I think this will be great to wear somewhere when it's really, really warm. It's very refreshing, and again, as I said, very juicy. It does have some light fruitiness and aromatics in there, and woods and spices, and of course some ambery touches in the dry down. So that's Eros Energy. Love the bottle, by the way. What do you guys think? Which bottle do you prefer between these two? Let me know which one do you prefer. This next fragrance is from the house of Jean-Paul Gaultier, number 14. It's Scandal pour Homme Absolu. Sadly, this doesn't live up to the DNA of the new versions of Le Male. This one, it's an Absolu, so I was expecting something really extremely beefy. I think that's the DNA of this fragrance. The formula is very flat and not really loud. It sits very close to the skin. It's got a cozy holiday-ish vibe. It's got Mirabelle plums, so it's slightly fruity. It's got that chestnut nuttiness here, gourmand touches, and creaminess from the sandalwood. I wanted more from this. Even though it smells great, it just doesn't have that oomph that I want from it. And, comparing it to something Le Male Elixir, which is beast mode, this one kind of falls flat. As a smell, I really love it. But I think going back to the chestnuts, a lot of fragrances that feature this chestnut note seem to be kind of subdued on me. They wear kind of closer to the skin. They don't have that kind of really big, massive projection that I really like in fragrances. And again, you don't need those all the time. This does smell great. I'm just putting it here at number 14 because in the end, it's not really necessarily one of my favorite DNAs and fragrances. So that's Scandal Pour Homme Absolu. I do have to say it's much better than the previous editions though. So it does smell much better than those. So the other ones probably would not end up on this list. It will be in the bonus section. Here I'm adding the Absolu. Alright, up next, going to the house of MAUBOUSSIN. This is Star for Men. I reviewed this several months ago. Somebody had told me it's finally available at the discounters because I was anticipating this one earlier this year when they announced it. It ended up at FragranceNet. I bought my bottle there. I did a video. People started buying it because it was around 30, 35, 40 bucks. Then they completely ran out. It does remind me of Layton a bit, sort of similar, but a great take on it. It's amber, tonka, saffron, incense, vanilla, cardamom, cedar. There's iris here. There's papyrus. A lot of great stuff happening with it, and it's a great take on something that reminds me of Layton, but on a much more budget scale. MAUBOUSSIN does some great fragrances. Sometimes they do feel like they're inspired or copied, but again, they do their own little twist on them. And this is created by Karen de Brule-Sereni, I believe. She also created another fragrance for Lalique, the Lalique White and Black. It does kind of remind me of that as well. That's also kind of a Layton-like fragrance. But in the end, this is a really, really great fragrance. If you can find it at the discounter for around 30, 40 bucks, get it, especially if you can't afford something like Layton, which is overly expensive. So that's Star for Men from the house of MAUBOUSSIN. MAUBOUSSIN is a designer of jewelry, by the way, from France, and they always release some great fragrances. But moving on to the house of VIKTOR&ROLF, it's Spice Bomb Dark Leather, this one right here. I wanted to love this a lot more. In the end, it's basically taking the Spice Bomb DNA and adding leather to it and making it a lot darker. So it has dark leather, tobacco, incense, cinnamon, black pepper, and nutmeg. For me, the black pepper really stands out in this one. It's mostly a tobacco-ish black peppery take on a leather. It doesn't go fully animalic on me. When I was buying this one, the sales associate said, oh, it's basically like ombre leather. I'm like, I don't think it would be, and definitely not. Maybe the leathers might remind you of one another, but for me, the DNA is very much Spice Bomb with a leathery, spicy twist. So that's Spice Bomb Dark Leather. And speaking of leather, we have another one here from the house of Brioni. It's Eau de Parfum Suave. And I wanted to love this more as well. It's not my favorite from the house, but definitely better than Spice Bomb Dark Leather. That's why I've put it here. It's pink pepper, leather, amber, cardamom, vetiver, sandalwood, and mandarin. Definitely a great evolution of the fragrances of the Brioni collection in Eau de Parfum. I think it's Brioni Eau de Parfum is the first one that launched. And this is the 5th one, and I'm looking forward to perhaps doing a video on this collection. If you want a video, let me know. Put a comment down below. But I do hear that there's another one coming sometime soon. So they're cranking these fragrances out, and everybody's got their own style or preference that they would go with. Again, this is a leather. It does have a little bit of the DNA in there, not a lot for me, but it's basically the evolution of the Brioni Eau de Parfum series of fragrances. If you like a spicy leather again, definitely check this out. It doesn't smell like dark leather from the Spice Bomb Dark Leather from VIKTOR&ROLF, but in the end, it's once again spicy as well. So this Brioni Eau de Parfum Suave. Here's the first of the 2 brands that I have mentioned, or that I put here, even though they're not necessarily considered designer. This is Guerlain's, one of Guerlain's 3 parfums that are here on the list. It's L'Homme Ideal Parfum. As a smell, I absolutely love the smell. But for me, when I compare this to the Vetiver and the Habit Rouge, this is the weakest, but smells super fantastic. It's amaretto liquor, leather, patchouli, musky notes. It does have almondy touches. It's a bit gourmand. It has the patchouli, and that's what I like about this series, especially in some of the other releases in this series. The patchouli was really amped up in the marine one, the one with the blue bottle. I don't know what that was all about. It was still not a favorite of mine, but somehow I preferred the dry down. But here, I think they've also amped up the patchouli against the leather and the almondy, boozy, gourmand notes. It's really great. I wish it was a bit more potent. For some strange reason, it's not as parfum as I wanted it to be, but as a smell, it's great. That is L'Homme Ideal Parfum from the house of Guerlain. Then we're going to the house of Trussardi. It's Primo. This one right here. I have a full review of this on the channel. Go catch it. I really like this fragrance and the way it smells. It's also very soft and cozy and a bit on the gourmand side. It does have a minerally touch, a bit red hotish, but I wouldn't call this a red hot smell. It doesn't have pink pepper or cinnamon or anything like that. It just gives you that kind of an effect when you're wearing it. But in addition to the lava mineral accord, they have maple syrup here, tonka, pimento, sandalwood, patchouli, bourbon geranium, cedarwood, and grapefruit. Really, as a smell, it smells great. I wish it was a bit more potent. I'm complaining about this one and the previous one. I wanted a bit more heft, especially with this one. The previous one, I should say the other one actually more, because the other one's a parfum. This actually performs just like that as far as performance goes. It's softer, but longevity-wise is similar. And that's a parfum. It should be a lot more beefier. It's not. Here, I wish it was a bit more powerful as well. Maybe they'll release a parfum edition of this. But as a fragrance, as a smell, it's really great. One of the best designer fragrances of this year. This is Primo from the House of Trussardi. Let me know if you've sampled that one. But moving on to the House of Guerlain, once again, it's Vetiver Parfum. So this is my second favorite of the 3 Parfum Guerlain launched. I like this parfum. Is pretty intense, not as intense as the Habit Rouge, and also I don't prefer the smell of this one as much as the Habit Rouge, but this is a more amplified, intensified take on that very popular Guerlain fragrance, Vetiver. If you are in the market for a Vetiver fragrance and you're eyeing the Guerlain Vetiver, definitely go for the parfum because it does have that more intensity. So basically, if you're familiar with that, it's that grassy, earthy, woody, spicy take on vetiver that Guerlain does a great job with. And very popular fragrance for men, it's Vetiver Parfum. Next, going to the House of Hermes, it's H24 Herbes Vives, this one right here. Really love the cooling effect this fragrance has. And in fact, Hermes has done a couple of cooling effect style fragrances recently. There's also one in the Terre de Hermes collection, and definitely very prominent here. This is featuring notes of fresh herbal bouquet, pear granita, and fizz-cool or cycle. Cycle is a minty kind of a note. I think it's synthetic. In the end, you get a very frosted, fruity. There's pear granita in here, so that's a kind of a frozen fruity dessert, and you get that effect here. I like the combination of the herbs and the fruits together and that kind of ice cold frozen effect when you're wearing it. Really wonderful offering. I like this one a lot because I like the fact that it gives me that cooling effect, and I like the way it smells as well. So definitely a great release from the House of Hermes, and it's H24 Herbes Vives. Then going to the House of Tom Ford, this is the second of 2 unisex fragrances. This is Tom Ford's Eau d'Ombre Leather, this one right here. This has been taken to a more baby cat or number 5 by Rosendo Matu direction. And basically, it's a complete different DNA for sure. It doesn't smell identical to Ombre Leather, but it's gingery, it's spicy, it's vanillic and leathery, of course. And it's taking the Ombre Leather into a more vanillic direction. So I think they've done a great job. It's completely different. It might have kind of confused some people because it doesn't smell like the original Ombre Leather, whereas the original Ombre Leather in EDP and the Parfum did remind you of one another. Here we've got a complete new DNA. I don't know if they've made a mistake doing this, but what do you guys think? I actually really love the Baby Cat Rosendo Matu number 5 DNA, so I really prefer this one. In fact, I've gotten compliments from it as well. So that's Eau d'Ombre Leather from the House of Tom Ford. Up next, going to the House of Prada, it's Luna Rossa Ocean Le Parfum, this one right here. I really like the way this one smells, and it's a parfum, and it's a really great take on a kind of a leathery, woody, ambery, citrusy fragrance. It smells fantastic on me, but, you know, it has a great projection and things like that, and I was never a fan of the original Ocean fragrance. There's another one, right? I never bought that one, but this one I smelled in passing and really enjoyed it, so I ended up buying it. Luna Rossa, the series, I prefer the black the most. I'm hoping they'll do a parfum of that one. But here we have a really great take on a leathery, aromatic, spicy, woody amber fragrance that has great, great smell and really great trail. In the end, it's a Le Parfum or Parfum concentration. It's not the most intense, but I like the way it smells, and I think it's a great designer release. So it's Luna Rossa Ocean Le Parfum. But moving on to the House of Caron, this is the second brand that I added here, and I'm considering it a designer even though it doesn't really have, you know, clothing or jewelry or anything like that. This is Caron Pour un Homme de Caron Parfum. It's a great take on the original, much more intense, much more ambery, lots of lavender, very aromatic, very spicy, a bit musky. Fantastic job they've done on this Parfum edition of the original. If you're a fan of the original and you want more intensity, you love that aromatic touch of the lavender. I love the smell of lavender. Here it's very much intensified. It's very cozy as well. I think lavender with vanilla makes it very, very cozy and calming. You've got that here, but a much more intense, much more ambery take on the original Caron Pour un Homme de Caron. So that's Pour un Homme de Caron Parfum from the house of Caron. And this is the last of the 2 fragrances from 2 different brands I mentioned are not considered designer, but I've featured them here because I feel like they've been selling with designers all along for decades. This is Guerlain's Habit Rouge Parfum. Amazing release, my favorite of the parfums, and I'm hoping that they take this and take what they've done to this and launch the Heritage and also L'Instant in Parfum as well. I would be very happy if they did that with them. But this is a really great take on the original Habit Rouge, going more into a gourmand direction and much more hefty, much more intensified. It's rum, vanilla tincture, patchouli. There's that patchouli that I really, really love. It's fantastic, guys. If you're familiar with the original but you don't like intensity, maybe stay away from this. If you like the original, you want more intensity, maybe also going into a bit more gourmand boozy direction, highly, highly recommend you check out Habit Rouge Parfum. It's super, super fantastic and deserves to be at number 2. And last but not least, I'm ending the list at number 1 with Hugo Boss's Boss Bottled Absolu. Man, it's good. Really, really great. Super sexy. A great take on the original, which last year they launched the Elixir, which was great. And this year they launched the Triumph Elixir. I don't have it on the list. It's in the bonus section. But this stuff is fantastic. It's smoky, leathery, super sexy with the patchouli. There's lots of amber here and woods. One of the best designer fragrances ever made. I think it smells fantastic. It's got great lingering power, great projection and things like that. For me, these top 2 releases of the year for men. Habit Rouge Parfum and Boss Bottled Absolu. What do you guys think? Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Let me know your favorite men's designer fragrances. Also add a comment. Otherwise, please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook. And I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. So, the bonus section, the fragrances that did not make the list. Diesel's D-Red, bad fragrance, really couldn't stand it. Chanel's Allure Homme Sport Super Leggera, disappointing, complete disappointing. I liked it, but the more I started wearing it, the more I hated it because the marine notes came through. Dior Sauvage Eau Forte, hell no, that fragrance is awful. I hated it, and I hated the whole no alcohol, alcohol-free take on that fragrance. Lacoste Original doesn't smell like the original, and I don't understand why they would call this original because it's brand spanking new. And speaking of that DNA of Invictus that I don't care for, this stuff smelled like that DNA of Invictus that I smell a lot in men's designer fragrances. I'm putting Boss Bottled Triumph Elixir here in the bonus section as well. I didn't hate this fragrance, but it was not fitting in the top 21 list. And then, finally, Bulgari's Man in Black Parfum. What a disappointment this was. It smelled great, but it didn't act like a parfum. It acted more like an eau de toilette, maybe pushing eau de parfum. A lot of these fragrances I shot reviews on. You can go catch them, but these fragrances I would not list in the main list. But perhaps you like these ones. Let me know if you do, and why do you like them? And if you don't like the fragrances in the main list, why do you not like them? Anyway, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Stay tuned for another video very soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.